Welcome to John and Ellen Graham's house in 1883 in Youngstown, Ohio. They married at Ellen's uncle's house in New Bedford, just across the state border into Pennsylvania. This was in 1866, and it was with Ellen's sister Elizabeth and Walter Hinchliffe. We know that from an article in the Lawrence Journal. Ellen was born in New Bedford to David and Charlotte McGill Hartley, whereas John was born in Tyrone, Northern Ireland, to Arthur and Anna Wiley Graham. They were about the same age. Ellen born in 1848 and John in 1847. In 1883, both sets of parents were alive except for Arthur. We don't know when he died. The reason we are looking at 1883 is because Ellen just had twins, John Wiley and Hugh James. Before taking a look at the different members of the family, let's talk about the house shown here. The house was located at 73 West Boardman on the southeast corner of Phelps and Boardman. They rented this house, which was just 2 blocks from the center of town. It is now a multi-level public parking garage. It was just 2 blocks from the public school and close to the Episcopal Methodist Church. Also very close to where John worked at the G.W. Caulfield dry goods store. Let's start with John. He managed the team and wagon for the dry goods store. He was born on a farm his father leased located between 3 towns in Northern Ireland, Dromore, Fintona, and Tillich. He was the oldest boy and third in his family. He had 2 older sisters, Liza and Anne Jane. Both were married at this time. His younger siblings were Edward, Rebecca, and Hugh. The entire family came to America in March of 1863. Soon after they arrived, they settled in Youngstown. This was during the Civil War. John joined the military when he was 18 years old, although he said he was 20. He was in the Ohio Infantry, 197th Regiment, Company A. He only served 3 months and the war ended. John bought 80 acres in Arkansas, sight unseen, and moved the family there in 1886. He passed away in 1899 and was buried in Des Arc, Arkansas. The next individual in the family is Ellen Hartley. The best I can figure, Ellen was born in a house along the main street of New Bedford, Pennsylvania, where her father operated a blacksmith business. Her father, David Hartley, was born in Ireland and moved to Canada for a few years and then to New Bedford, Pennsylvania. Her mother was Charlotte McGill, born in New Brunswick, Canada. They were married in Pennsylvania in 1842. Ellen's twin, Margaret, married Lewis Howlett. 2 of Ellen's children, David and Sarah, stayed with the sister when the rest of the family moved to Arkansas in 1886. Just after John died in Arkansas, Ellen moved back to Ohio with the 4 youngest children, Hugh James, John Wiley, Pearl, and Clara. Ellen died in Albany, New York, while spending time with Myra in 1924. The first of John and Ellen's children was Arthur, named after John's father. He was born in Youngstown in 1867, just a year after they were married. I am showing Arthur and David in the same bedroom. Arthur was 15 years old at this time. He would go on to marry Mary Ann Bigwood in Des Arc, Arkansas. They had 5 children between the years 1892 and 1902. He passed away in Texas in 1928. The next child shown is Sarah Ann Graham. She is shown in a room with Ella, one of the other sets of twins. Sarah was 13 at this time. Sarah did not go with the family to Arkansas, but stayed with Ellen's twin sister Margaret, and was later married in Cleveland to Arthur Page. When John passed away in Arkansas and Ellen moved to Cleveland, it was to be with Sarah. Sarah and her husband, Arthur Page, moved to California in about 1902. Sarah had 3 children. She passed away just before I was born in 1949 while living in Los Gatos, California. She was 79. David was the second son. He was named after Ellen's father, David Hartley. He would have been 11. David was also left behind when the family moved to Arkansas. He was married in Cleveland while living there. He married Leona Dewey. Her family lived in Massachusetts. They had 3 children. The family lived most of their lives in the vicinity of Albany, New York, where David worked for a railroad company. In 1905, Ellen, Hugh James, and Myra lived close to David. Clara, the youngest member of the John and Ellen family, was living with David and his family. David passed away at the young age of 45 in 1917. This shows Margaret in a bedroom with Sarah. Margaret was named after Ellen's twin sister. This Margaret was also a twin, and her twin sister named Ellen after her mother. Margaret married John S. Benson in 1894 when she was 19. At the time Hugh James was born, she was 8. When the family moved to Arkansas, she was 11 years old and spent the rest of her life living in different towns in Arkansas. She passed away in 1958 at the age of 83. Apparently, she had no children. Ellen, Margaret's twin sister, is shown in the kitchen. I have her in the big bedroom with Julia and Myra. She married James French in 1894, the same year her twin sister got married. She also spent her life in Arkansas. She had 2 sons. They also lived and died in Arkansas. In the 1920 census, she stated that her mother was born in Ireland and spoke Irish. This was the person she was named after, and she didn't even know where her mother was born. She passed away in 1933 at the age of 59. Julia is shown as the oldest daughter in the large bedroom. At this time, she is only 6. Julia married Tom Russell Hardy when she was 20 years old in 1897, 2 years before her father died, and the younger children moved with Ellen back to Ohio. Thomas and Julia moved from Cotton Plant, Arkansas, to Jonesboro before 1910. In about 1914, Hugh and his family moved to Jonesboro as well. Her husband died in 1934. Evelyn Hardy, Julia's oldest daughter, moved to Tacoma, Washington in the 60s. Her son, Richard Graham Mount, is buried in the same cemetery as Russell Graham. Julia passed away in Jonesboro in 1963 when she was 86 years old. Myra Elizabeth was 2 years old here. She was called Lizzie. When she was visiting her brother in Albany, New York, she met and married Samuel Burdick in 1905. She had a son a year later, William Roy Burdick, who was their only child that we know of. He had 2 daughters. Myra's mother, Ellen, was living with the family when she passed away. Myra died the same year and was buried in Clarendon, Ohio, with her mother. The next are the twins, Hugh James and John Wiley. They are in the parents' bedroom, shown in 2 cribs. John Wiley married Lena Hoffner in 1904 in Clarendon, Ohio. That is where they spent the rest of their lives. They had 4 children and also helped raise Hugh James' second child, Hugh James II. John died the same year as Hugh in 1954. He was buried in East Clarendon, Ohio, with his mother and sisters. Hugh was born in Youngstown with his twin brother. They went with the family to Des Arc, Arkansas. When John died, they went with Ellen to Cleveland, Ohio. At that time, they were 17. Hugh had a shotgun wedding to Martha Elizabeth Sharp in New London, Ohio. They had 1 child, Orlena, and divorced. His next marriage was with Jenny Ballantyne in 1906 in Albany. They had 1 child, Hugh James II. Jenny died in childbirth. His next wife was Martha Verna Smith. They had 3 sons, Gil, Harvey, and Russell. Hugh is buried in Medford, Oregon. He died when he was 70 years old.